Hello guys, my name is James Morgan. I'm from Warranamani Architects, and today I will be presenting on behalf of our healthcare partners, MAP Architects, and also our cultural partners. Before we start, as is a custom in Australia, I'd just like to acknowledge the Gadigal people as the traditional custodians of the land that this project's located on, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. The Alexandra Health Centre is a result of a City of Sydney design competition. The project provides a response to a current and future need of mental health. It's a facility that co-locates health services within a dense inner city community. It's got an open and inviting ground floor plane, 3 levels of medical centre flexible tenancy, and then a mental health hospital containing 56 short-term inpatient accommodation. The structure of the presentation today, I'll talk through an issue, touch on the context, and then describe our architectural response. We live in a post-pandemic world, one that has magnified existing mental health conditions within the community. Increase in anxiety issues, increase in the percentage of mental disorders, and a huge projected global cost to the economy. And while it's recognised there's major advancements in how we diagnose mental health conditions, what hasn't happened is our ability to keep up with the quality of care and the need to create more facilities that cater and support specific communities that they serve. So where is our community? In Australia, a country filled with vast beauty and immense landscape. A country going through an awakening of its history, a recognition and revival of its First Nations peoples, a 60,000-year living lineage of culture, wisdom, and deep connection and understanding of the natural world. Our project specifically is located in Sydney, a city recognised around the world for its iconic buildings and beautiful landscape settings. The site is situated in an area called Alexandria, which is about 15 kilometres south of the CBD. It's an area that's been earmarked for significant growth and an influx of development and urban regeneration. And it's the real opportunity to create a benchmark for development within this neighbourhood. It's also a hard industrial area, one that's been stripped of any connection or understanding of the land that it's sitting on, and we refer to this as broken country. I'm just going to jump into the resolution, and from the start of this, we sought to work alongside our traditional Indigenous consultants and our healthcare partners to balance traditional and contemporary methods of care. More specifically, looking at architectural opportunities to respond to mental health issues beyond just the physical, such things as social and mental well-being, a balancing of both ancient wisdom and contemporary care. We created project vision, nature and science intertwined to create holistic well-being. In establishing that project vision, we crafted 3 key principles: a connection to country, a facility wrapped around sound clinical planning, and a core focus on user experience throughout the project. What do we mean when we talk about connection to country? It's a phrase used by Indigenous groups to describe a deep connection to land, water and sky from both a physical and spiritual setting. And this became the starting point for our design exploration. It's a diagram just showing a stepped landscape response as we move up the project. How could we create a connection to landscape and nature for patients and staff at all levels and major thresholds across the project, connecting landscape to the healing experience and journey. This is the ground floor plan, a heavily landscaped arrival experience up the top, drawing you deep into the floor plate to the street edge and lift doors. We recognise that we will be having vulnerable people within the community arriving at this facility, and a key planning consideration was to provide patients with options for how they start this journey. So you have a primary and public address north to south, and from east to west there's a more secure and I guess secluded arrival point. And permeated along this track are moments for pause, contemplation. And this is just a first look at that street edge most public arrival point, a softer and more approachable entry sequence, bringing you through landscape to a raised ground floor plane. Sound clinical planning, basic project hygiene, really. We worked alongside and this was mainly driven by our health specialist map to balance the functional relationships and that kind of connection to country. These diagrams here, the diagram on the left shows that functional relationship from a clinical perspective on this floor. Diagram in the middle shows us then starting to embed ideas of country and landscape into that floor plate, and the plan on the right, where you can clearly see landscape embedded deep in the scheme, in this plate. Stepping up to the inpatient levels, similar process, functional diagram, overlaying landscape, and then the outcome, these deep courtyard spaces centrally located within the scheme, connecting both visually and also, well, mainly connected visually to the functional relationships around them. This is just the first section I've shown, and probably one that's most descriptive. You can see that kind of landscape arrival, drawing you in deep into the floor plate. The medical centre tenancies are 3 levels, and then the heart of the project, the mental health hospital on the upper levels. And you can see those penetrating courtyards drawing light, air and landscape deep into that floor plate. A view from the main street. We were really conscious of creating a building that felt approachable and welcoming, warm materials and colours that are of this country and of this area, planting that is local, and a form that is soft and prioritises landscape markers, so you can see that kind of swooping form dipping in behind an existing tree on site to kind of reveal that point. And the last point, user experience, so elevating this healing journey as people move through this space. I'm just going to run through a few images of that journey. The first threshold into the facility from the public entrance creates a sense of arrival for patient, staff and caregivers, and it's elevating, as we're working through this, trying to elevate some of these physical and non-physical thresholds into the site. This is just a view looking down on that. Takes the shape of an ancient yarning circle, an area to decompress and pause before entering and before moving into the facility. Rising up to the medical centre reception, a clear and visible connection between care and country and landscape. Stepping further up to the mental health hospital and an inpatient common area. Large, oversized internal courtyards connect patient and their treatment back to this living landscape. And this allows for both internal and external connection in a safe and controlled manner. So giving passive surveillance to staff and patients and access to daylight. One of the typical patient bedrooms, a response to country themes, soft, warm, welcoming materials, a lot of timber, rounded corners, a safe space and a feeling of home. So in closing today, I've just presented our approach to this new mental health facility through the lens of an issue, context and then resolution. And in doing this, we're illustrating a number of first steps towards a more holistic healthcare model, one that centres around a connection to country, people-first approach, de-institutionalised care, so breaking down some of those boundaries, moments of reflection and connection throughout the journey, optimised health principles in the model of care, and a considered urban response that knits into the community. And while we kind of recognise that this is probably not, it's not meant to be a complete solution, we do see this as a first step in the right direction to balancing ancient wisdom and contemporary care. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this a public institution? Is it a private one?
It is private, yes.
Is it private funded, private client?
Yes, private funded, private client.
Thank you very much. Brilliant presentation, super clear. And Actually, obviously with Australian projects, we always have this kind of idea of a connection to country, and it can, and I think we're less used to it, but it can come across as very add-on, and in this case, it really doesn't, and I really commend you on that, because you can really see that it's not just about making references; it's actually about spaces and landscape, and looking at thresholds and how a slower pace of life has a different relationship with thresholds, and I think that's really interesting and really relevant to healthcare. So I absolutely commend you on that. The one bit of the scheme that I didn't feel I understood or had a sense of was the middle bit, the medical centre, because you sort of talk quite a lot about arrival and the lower levels, and then you talk quite a bit, and there's some great images of the sort of mental health bit.
Yep.
Why is the middle section a bit less defined?
I mean, as part of the process, the focus was on the mental health hospital. Medical centre tenancies at this stage, we're just providing a flexible space for that. We don't actually have a tenant for those areas, but it's just more of a flexible floor plate that can allow, I guess, health-associated tenants to move into there. So doctors, GPs.
Okay, so it's not an integrated facility. It's that you're kind of doing the top and the bottom for your client, and then they're going to let the floors in between to medical-associated tenancies.
Essentially.
Okay.
So it's in many ways, I guess the idea in one way, you could phrase it as a health ecosystem, potentially, pulling a range of co-located facilities together. So the idea at the end of the day is we will get a medical, and we are talking with sort of a GP operator to move into some of those spaces, just so that we can have, I guess, all those facilities within one building, within that community.
Thank you.
That's right.
Thanks for the thorough presentation. Could you speak to the sustainability aspects of it, and particularly the facade?
Yes, I could. Yeah, I didn't really touch on sustainability in this at all. It's a double skin facade, essentially. We have done a lot of, materiality-wise, we're looking at terracotta as a facade material, warmer, textured. We've done quite a lot of work around modelling that facade to kind of get that perfect balance between, I guess, views out, but then also managing shading and daylight into that space. Anything more specific you want me to talk about?
And beyond the facade, is there a strategy for energy? I mean, medical centers tend to be energy hogs, to be, blunt.
They do, yeah. And I mean, at this stage, that is still being developed in the background. I guess there's a big move, especially on those upper levels, and I might jump through to, let's go to this section. I guess on the upper levels, if we talk about sustainability, the passive ventilation and stack effect on that upper level is probably quite important. I guess other elements that we are, and there was one kind of big one that we looked at really early on. The envelope that we were working with is quite a lot larger, and we had a reference scheme which came in, which was 2-story or 2 floors bigger than this building. So we worked really hard to kind of manage and move some of that program around to reduce the height of that building. So building less was one of the big moves we did quite early on. The other thing, and you kind of look at those courtyard spaces, and it looks like there's a little bit of structural gymnastics going on there. But in reality, we have worked really hard to hone that structural solution, and we actually have removed basically every single transfer beam within this project. Nice. The other thing, I guess, just from a sustainability point of view, you can sort of see it here. There is a bit of a step above. This project, there's got a huge overland flow path running through it, and so we had to kind of manage the height of that ground floor level to above that floodplain, and so I guess the landscaping at the front, whilst kind of drawing people into it, also has a second benefit of trying to mitigate that height difference. So from a resilience point of view, I guess you could add that to the list as well.
Unrelated to the sustainability issue, a question I have is medical centers of all types seem to need to expand in a fairly short order. Has that been thought through, and is there an opportunity in terms of the site?
Not specifically. I mean, I think it's not a large building, and we were presenting yesterday, and there's sort of giant hospital schemes that sat next to that. We see this as kind of more of a humble model that would sit within a community. It's a densely populated community. I guess as a program, you could probably say that the idea would be that this could be a project that could be moved around, not the design specifically, but the program and what the facility is doing. And so I think from an expansion point of view, I would say that probably is not on the cards, because we'd say that you'd be creating more of these projects in other neighbourhoods that serve those specific communities. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's right.
I'm actually interested in the link between the ancient wisdom and the contemporary care. Does that go beyond the use of light and greenery? Does it have to do with the way even medical practices have
Yes.
sort of changed?
It does, and I guess
And
there's
how did the
sorry.
architecture address that?
Yep. So I guess throughout, we've got landscape at all levels of this building. We are looking at introducing gardens in here, and I guess from an ancient wisdom perspective, traditional forms of medicine around using plants for healing. You could kind of imagine, I guess, as being a part of this, or coming into this facility, you've got the kind of the contemporary, which is more of a Western model of medicine, but you also have the ability to then maybe go and have a group therapy session or a kind of a group session, and then maybe use, I guess, some of those medicinal or herbal plants as part of that process as well. So it kind of tied in, to answer your question specifically, it kind of tied into planning types, but I guess also the way we break down this building in slightly more organic form, softer architecture, more welcoming, more inviting, use of warmer materials throughout, I think. Yeah.
Hi, thanks so much for the presentation. I'm curious about what determined the height of the ground level.
The overall...
Just the amount of glass and the amount of transparency, and how it relates to this human experience of coming to terms with going to a place to address your let's say, mental health.
I think from a height perspective, we wanted to provide at least relatively generous depth in there, that we are looking at, as part of that, I guess it unlocks the ability to use the soffit of that level for artist or art installations, things like that. The height, everyone, sorry, I've forgotten the next specific question.
It is related to the experience, the user, the person experience of going to a space that might seem a little bit too transparent or too monumental, just given the height, the generosity of the height of the ground level. How you imagine this? You focused a lot on the landscape that precedes the space.
Yeah, I think to answer that, yes, it possibly could feel slightly too large. I think because we've got a range of different arrival points, depending on how the people coming here are feeling, their comfort levels. If they're comfortable coming through that main address, they can do that. Otherwise, they can come through more discreet entrances. So I think in terms of playing with that might be one way of managing it. But I think also tying into the landscaping, we are creating moments for pause within this floor plate. And so if people are moving through here, there are areas where they can sit and they can kind of get away from that size or scale to a degree.
Thank you.
That's right.